It was getting dark outside, and long shadows fell across the streets. Traffic had slowed down to a crawl. In the middle of the busy city, a sleek black sedan slowly moved along the highway. Inside, behind darkened windows, sat one of the wealthiest men in the world, Darius Hawk. His wealth came from a group of technology companies and was almost unimaginable. But today he had to deal with a problem that was so easy it could only be called silly. His car's tire was flat. Darius had been on his way to a high-profile meeting in the city, and the puncture had happened without notice. The driver of the car had pulled over on a quiet road just outside of town, away from any big gas stations or auto shops. Even though Darius was rich and willing to pay anything, he couldn't do anything. He didn't know how to change a tire, and his helper, Hector, wasn't very helpful either. Hector had been with him for years, a man of great loyalty, but even less technical skill. The two men stepped out of the car and surveyed the damage. When Darius looked down at the flat tire, his mind was already full of ideas for how to get out of this mess. To get the car to the nearest gas station, someone could call a chopper or send a tow truck right away. But the most interesting thing to him was seeing an old man sitting nearby on a worn-out wooden bench. The old man wore a worn cap, a loose-fitting jacket that seemed out of place for the modern world, and pants that had seen better days. He was sitting with his hands folded, watching the cars pass by, his tired eyes revealing a lifetime of stories. In front of him, resting on the bench, was an ancient bicycle, the kind you'd expect to find in an old picture. Darius stopped. Something about the old man's presence interested him. Perhaps it was the calm attitude amidst the chaos of modern life, or the way he seemed so at ease despite the apparent decay of his surroundings. Darius waved to Hector, showing that he was going to speak with the old man. As he walked over, Darius tried to clear his mind, wondering why he felt drawn to the stranger. The old man didn't look up instantly. His attention focused on a small book in his hands. It wasn't a fancy book, just a simple copy, well worn from years of reading. Darius cleared his voice. "Excuse me, sir," Darius began, his voice laced with a hint of politeness that came easily from years of interacting with people of all ranks. "I'm in a bit of a predicament. My car has a flat tire, and I'm unsure what to do. I don't suppose you know how to fix it, do you?" The old man slowly raised his head, his eyes moving from Darius to the car and back to the man himself. For a moment, there was no reaction, and Darius felt a twinge of discomfort. He wasn't used to being ignored. But then, the old man smiled a soft, knowing smile that somehow seemed to ease the strain. "Well," the old man said in a gravelly voice, "I might be able to help, if you're willing to let me." Darius was taken aback. He hadn't expected such a straight answer. You know how to change a tire?" he asked, astonished. The old man's clothes certainly didn't suggest skill in anything automotive. "Been fixing tires longer than I've been fixing my own breakfast," the old man laughed, standing up slowly. He stretched his arms, the joints creaking from age, and then looked at Darius again, as if measuring him. "But I'm guessing you probably want someone to do it for you, not help you do it." Darius blinked. The old man's words were sharp, though gentle in tone. He had struck a nerve. Darius had never once had to do something as basic as change a tire. His entire life had been shaped by ease, wealth, and technology. Why should he, of all people, have to get his hands dirty? "I suppose," Darius began, his pride holding him back, "I don't really know how. I've never had the need to learn." The old man nodded slowly, as if understanding exactly what Darius meant. "A lot of people don't. We get too busy looking forward and forget to look down at the ground sometimes." Darius raised an eyebrow, uncertain where the conversation was going. The old man motioned to the car. "You know," he said, his voice carrying wisdom, "it's not the tire that's the problem. It's how we deal with the problem that counts. I can help you fix it, but you have to be willing to get engaged. Nothing in life is ever as easy as just looking at something and saying, 'Fix it for me.' You have to roll up your sleeves sometimes." Darius stood there, feeling oddly challenged. though he wasn't sure by what. The old man's words had struck a chord. He had everything: money, power, success. And yet in this moment, he was just a man with a broken tire, stuck on the side of the road. The realization was oddly humble. After a brief pause, Darius made a choice. "All right," he said, "let's do it together." The old man smiled and beckoned for Darius to follow him to the rear of the car. There, the old man took charge, leading Darius step by step through the process. They worked together to lift the car, unscrew the bolts, and change the tire. Despite the old man's age, his hands moved with surprising speed and precision, while Darius struggled at first, fumbling with the wrench and feeling his normal confidence slip away. As they worked, the old man spoke of life, his life. He had worked as a mechanic in his youth, going from town to town, fixing what was broken, helping people in need. He had never sought wealth or fame, only the satisfaction of a job well done and the joy of teaching others. "I've learned a lot in my time," the old man said as he tightened the last bolt on the new tire. "But the most important thing is this: you can't always rely on others to fix your problems. Sometimes you need to get your hands dirty and fix things for yourself." Darius looked at him, a hint of admiration in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt something he had almost forgotten. "Thanks." "Thank you," Darius said sincerely. "I don't think I would have been able to figure that out on my own." The old man shrugged, smiling. "It's nothing, son. Just a little help along the way." As the job was finished, Darius looked back at the old man, who had already started to walk back toward the bench. A thought lingered in his mind. This simple, kind stranger had taught him something priceless. He had learned that true wealth wasn't in what one owned, but in the moments when you could be humbled, learn something new, and share a real human connection. Darius reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick wad of cash, walking over to the old man. "I insist," Darius said, pushing the money into the man's hand. "Please take this. It's the least I can do." The old man looked at the money for a moment, then shook his head softly. "I don't need that," he said. "Keep it. But remember, when you're rich enough to have everything, sometimes you forget what really counts." Darius stood there, the money still in his hand, and for a long moment, he didn't know what to say. Finally, he nodded, turned, and walked back to the car. As he drove away, Darius felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He had learned more about life in that short exchange than in any board meeting or conference call. And as the limousine sped off into the night, he couldn't help but wonder how many other things he had yet to learn.